Hey there, Sandy from sandybowie.com. So listen, today I wanted to talk about invisibility. Now, I know that might seem a little bit strange to want to talk about invisibility rather than visibility, but there's a really good reason for that. What happened to me, right, when I started my business, I decided that I wanted to be a coach. And I've been watching all these other coaches. I've been watching them, do content type, whether it's videos or whether it was webinars or whether blogging, whatever, and selling their programs and making good money as a coach. And I decided that that was something that I wanted to do as well, because it looks pretty easy when you see someone else doing it who's good at doing it. It actually looks pretty easy, doesn't it? So I decided that that's what I wanted to do, and I was already in a sort of teaching capacity as a corporate trainer, so it kind of suited the type of work that I did anyway. But what happened was invisibility became a problem. And what I realised was that when it came right down to it and it was time for me to choose my niche, to get my message sorted, so that I could then start putting myself out there and communicating and doing my own free content, I started to freeze. And I got so scared doing all of that basically I wasn't making any money as a coach at all. I didn't make any money at all in the first God knows how many months. And that was because I just couldn't put myself out there. I couldn't do the visibility thing. I couldn't create my content because I didn't feel confident enough to put anything out there. I didn't want to go on live streams because I didn't want people to see me. I didn't want people that I knew to see me. It was all really complicated, and I didn't expect any of this to happen either. It was really weird because I thought I was a reasonably confident person. I thought, this will be fine. I can do this. It isn't that difficult, actually. But what I was hit with was all this fear, and it was so completely unexpected that it threw me off. So I started to look at where it was all coming from, and this is where the invisibility thing comes in, because I realised that I had a problem with visibility. That was my main problem. I had some blocks to being visible online, and it came to something that I call your invisibility story, which is basically how you've lived your life up until that point. And what I realised was that I'd lived my life actually being invisible instead of being visible. And it was a strategy that I'd applied since I was a young girl. So, for example, I didn't want people to notice me. I went through life deliberately trying to get people not to notice me. Trying not to draw attention to myself is probably the best way to describe it. And there was a very good reason for that. For example, from the age of, I don't know, probably younger than 5, but around 5, let's say, I was aware of the fact that, my father had a terrible temper. And sometimes if he got really angry with you, that could lead, to a spanking or whatever. And I didn't enjoy that aspect of home life at all. So a lot of my childhood was spent trying to be a good girl, trying to, do the right thing, trying to avoid, any attention from my father whatsoever, because I didn't want to be, and I'm using the word spanking lightly, some tempers definitely should be avoided. And I noticed that was a pattern. When I started to look at it, that was a pattern that I'd lived, it kept going. So, for example, when I went to the senior school, there was only one, but there was one particular teacher who was a real nasty piece of work, and he was a terrible bully. And for some reason, he picked on me particularly. and he was a real bully towards me, and I could never understand why. Like, he was a real nasty piece of work. So that was, again, whenever I went to his class, it was something, the strategy was, don't do anything, don't say, I mean, like, sit rigid, don't move, don't do anything. Like, do not attract attention to yourself. And no matter what I did, you know, I was actually the model student. I was like an A grade student and all of that. I wasn't like wild or anything. I didn't do any of those things. But still, no matter what I did, I could not draw attention to myself for some reason with this man. He was just terrible. So I spent about 4 years of my life trying to avoid his temper. And then, of course, later on in married life, trying to avoid my husband's temper. There's a theme going on there, isn't there? Thankfully, like, that theme is no longer in my life. But what I did was I realised that there was an invisibility story here. Like, that I'd lived my whole life making sure that people didn't notice me, not drawing attention to myself, not attracting attention to myself, and that was a deeply ingrained pattern. Now, it was a pattern that didn't serve me at all anymore, because I can't be a successful entrepreneur. I can't make money as a coach if people don't know who I am, if I'm not attracting any attention to myself, if I'm not letting people see me, like, and who I am and what I can do, then they're not going to hire me. So I knew that I needed to get over this sort of pattern of behaviour and this invisibility story that I had from before to become visible. And it was so difficult to get over. I can't believe how hard it was to make that transition. And I know there's a lot of other women out there who struggle with exactly the same, which is why I decided to become that type of coach, the coach who helps people work with their invisibility story and work through their invisibility blocks so that they can start to feel comfortable with being noticed online and getting attention from other people online and not being afraid of that, and like start making money in their business. So anyway, that's the background to why I wanted to talk about invisibility today. And I just wanted to do a short tapping session for anyone out there who's thinking, wow, that's me. I'm in exactly the same boat. I've sort of had similar experiences where, you know, being invisible has been my strategy to keep me safe. And it's very hard to let go of those sorts of strategies when it's something that's kept you safe from anything, particularly, you know, physical violence or criticism or confrontation or anything like that. It's really hard to shake it off. So I'm going to do a tapping session around that. And if you get triggered or anything during this tapping session, I will tell you at the end, I'll give you some like resources and help on how you can get around that as well. But taking full responsibility for your own well-being, just start, just gently tap on the side of your karate chop point here. Even though I've applied this strategy of being invisible pretty much my whole life, and I'm not exactly sure when it started, but I know that it's been something that's been with me a long time. I deeply and completely accept that part of myself. Even though I like being invisible, it suits me, and I hate it when people notice me, and I hate it when, you know, I draw attention to myself. I love and accept that part of myself, even though I like being invisible. I like people not noticing me, and that's how I've lived my whole life. I forgive myself for living that way. And I'm willing to look at it now and see how I can start to become more visible. Okay, so just start tapping around the points. I like being invisible. It has served me really well in my life. You know, it's a strategy that I've applied to avoid confrontation, like to avoid physical violence towards me, or to avoid, shouting, like people shouting at me, or people saying mean things to me, or being bullied by people, being bullied by that teacher, or being bullied and shouted at by my parents, or my husband. Like, it suits me to be invisible. It suits me not to be noticed by them. I feel safer when people can't see me. Like, I feel safer when I'm on my own and I'm doing my own thing. And there's no one there to criticise me. There's no one there to judge me. There's no one there to be mean to me, or make me feel bad about myself, or make me feel stupid, or inadequate, or just not good enough. So why would I want to be noticed around people? Like, when there's so many things that they could say about me. Okay. So maybe that brought something up for you. But what I'd like you to consider for now, if it did, by the way, you can go back and just tap through it again and again and again. But what I'd like you to do for now is just think about letting go of your invisibility story, and think about being visible. And on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being absolutely not, I want to cling to my invisibility story, I want to stay invisible, and 10 being, you know what, I'm really ready to get rid of this now, I'm really ready to be visible. Like, where are you on that scale? And whatever number you are, it's absolutely fine. It's just where you are right now, and that's what we're going to start working with. So, for example, when I first did that exercise, I was a number 4, and that's just where I was at that point in time. The thing is, you don't even need to get to a 10, because 10 is perfection, and we don't really need to get there. But even changing my story from a 4 to a 5 starts to get me results, and that's the exciting thing. I only have to let a little bit go. So let's just tap on that for a moment. So whatever number you are, just own it right now. And I'm going to go with number 4 because that's what I was. So even though I'm only a number 4, when I think about getting rid of my invisibility story, I'm okay with that. I can live with that, and I completely accept that that's where I'm at. Even though I'd like to be higher up on the scale, but I'm only at number 4. I'm totally okay with that, and I forgive myself for not being any higher. Even though I'm only number 4 on the scale, which means that I'm still holding on to a lot of fear about being visible. I'm totally okay with that, and I am ready to let go of those fears, and I'm going to start letting go of those fears today, and I feel completely safe to do that. Okay, and just tap around the points for a bit. I'm only a number 4. But that means I'm ready to let go of some of these fears. I mean, even if I was a number 1, it still means I'm ready to let go of some of these fears. I wouldn't even be watching this video if I wasn't. So that must mean that I am ready. I'm ready in some capacity to start being visible again. I'm ready to let go of this need. This need that I've maybe always had to be invisible. I can start to let go of that now. I can feel that shifting already. That I'm ready to let go of that invisibility story. Even just a little bit. You know, I'm not going to get rid of it in one day. But I don't need to. But I can feel things starting to shift. I can feel this invisibility story starting to shift. I'm ready to let go of it. I'm ready to let go of those fears and all those habits and all those ingrained behaviours that I've had for all these years. Because I know it's just my invisibility story. And it's just because of things that happened to me when I was younger, or that happened to me throughout my life. It's just a pattern. And I can change that pattern. Just like other things have changed in my life. As easy as I changed my clothes this morning, I can let go of it. And I'm going to start working on that today. Okay, so just take a deep breath and let it out, any energy that you've been holding on to. So the final thing that I wanted to say about your invisibility story today is, you've heard me talking about some memories, some key memories that I have. Like, I could tell you about, some hilarious stories around things that happened at school with this teacher, or things that happened at home. And, I can laugh about some of them slightly now, but they weren't funny at the time. And like, when I first started to talk about them, they triggered me massively. And the reason for that is that all the emotion that I felt at that time when that thing was happening to me, whatever that thing is for you as well, like, it's almost trapped in time. Like, when you go back and think about that particular time, or when you start tapping, those memories come back to you, and you're trapped in time with all that emotion. It's like it's still with you. And what we have to do then is go back into those memories and do some tapping and some healing work with various different techniques, so that you're no longer holding on to that emotion. Because when you let go of the emotion of what happened, then you can start to tell yourself a different story about what that event meant. And that's where the real transformation actually lies. That's where the massive shifts in energy change. And that's all you need. Just like little shifts in your energy around how you feel about this. And then you can start to make daily changes around your visibility. So in terms of what I would do next if I was you, and you're working on your visibility blocks and your invisibility story, is start to look at these memories, the things where you've been afraid to be noticed by people, like where you have been noticed by people and it's had negative consequences for you, and start to work on those memories. Start tapping on those memories. So for example, let's say the teacher in school who might have shouted at me for some particular reason, or in fact one particular incident, right, was where he physically stood me up in the class and reprimanded me for getting like 19.5 points out of 20 in a test, and literally in front of everyone told me it wasn't good enough. So I might just start tapping on, like, even though he told me that 19.5 out of 20 wasn't good enough, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Or even though he completely humiliated me in front of the rest of the class, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. So we start working on the memory. And that's where the real transformational change happens. So I did say as well that I would have some other resources from you. And the thing is, it's quite difficult to go back into these memories and to deal with the emotion and do the shift. It's quite difficult to do that yourself, because you can easily just get stuck in the emotion, and that can be scary. You can get caught up on it. So it's good to work with a practitioner, with someone that knows how to use these techniques. And if that's something that you want to do, I offer one-off sessions to work on visibility blocks, and to work on your visibility story, and to work on your invisibility memories where you've had negative consequences for being visible, where it's been a bad thing for you, and to work on that, to transform the feeling that you have about it, so you can start putting yourself out there. So I offer a Tap Yourself Visible session, a 90-minute session, and if you go to www.sandybowie.com/work with me, or just find the coaching page on Work With Me, you'll see the Tap Yourself Visible page. And that is where you can book from there, and we can work on your visibility and blocks, so that you can start feeling confident about putting yourself out there, so that it starts feeling safe to you. And you can let people hear what you have to say, safe in the knowledge that it's okay, it's perfectly acceptable, because other people are out there doing it, and why shouldn't you be too? It's just your visibility blocks that are stopping you. So if that's something that's interesting to you, like I say, go to www.sandybowie.com/work with me and get yourself booked into a session, because you do not need to live with these blocks. We can start working on them, and if you only make a tiny little shift, that's all you need to get started. So listen, I hope you've enjoyed the session, and let me know in the comments below, or if you're watching this on Facebook, then message me if you want to ask me something about it. Message me if you want to inquire about, what we do in the session and whether it would be useful for you. Just send me a message, and I wish you all the best of luck. Bye for now.